Well, good morning, and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio, and what a show we have in store for you. You may or may not have watched the State of the State with Governor Hochul. Some of you definitely did, because we've got a lot of great comments that we received throughout the week. Well, we are going to hear from none other than Assemblyman Phil Palmesano today. It's Fridays with Phil, so if you have any questions for Phil, your thoughts on the State of the State that I can relay to him, or just questions in general, that'll be coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. Also, just mark your calendar, since we're doing a little bit of housekeeping here. We've got busy Fridays. Everybody's schedule seemed to line up, so we had to move things around, and normally they're not quite like this. But next Friday, Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest. We always look forward to having the sheriff on the program. And then Friday the 30th, former Congressman, current Assemblyman, Joe Sempolinski will be joining us. So we have quite a lineup. And, of course, we'll have guests throughout the week. But those are ones set in stone as of this morning. Okay, a comment came in right after yesterday's broadcast, and if you missed yesterday's broadcast, we have up on our YouTube page or on WYDCTV.com, we have the interview that we had with Steuben County Legislature Chair Kelly Fitzpatrick. And after the interview and after the program, we had a comment from a viewer, and it's so nice. Thank you, Frank, for being our voice. Well, I appreciate that, and I anything I can do. That's why I love hearing your questions and getting your questions, because it's not about my questions. You are the residents of the area as well. So that is very kind words and a great way to start off my Friday morning. Okay, I had mentioned the passing of Scott Adams, the creator of the comic strip Dilbert, and I had mentioned that I knew that the media had a major dislike. And yes, we are going to talk about Trump receiving the Nobel Peace Prize from Maria Corina Machado, who won it this year. We're going to talk about that. We've got some Iran updates. We've got a lot of Minnesota updates I think you're going to find very interesting, and a few New York State issues to get to. So we have a lot that we need to pack in very little time. So I don't want to waste, and it's not a waste of time, but I want to explain myself. I said, when Scott Adams passed away, I knew the media hated him for a reason, and I can't remember what it was. I know he was an early Trump supporter, and I know that's enough to make the media hate you. Well, T. Beckett Adams kind of put into words what I wasn't able to accomplish after the announcement. He said, among the many indignities suffered by prominent normies and conservatives is that news of their death will nearly always include an accounting of their ideological sins. No one else gets this treatment, not even third world despots. And this is such a great point. And again, kind of a weird way to start off the broadcast, but it's so true. You'll see a despot, you'll see some dictator, and they'll still receive a glowing obituary in the New York Times, for instance. But if you are a conservative, your obituary will have some type of negative connotation to it. It will, because you have the ideological sin of being conservative, they will find a need to call you controversial. They'll call you scandalous. But I'll continue with what Mr. Adams had to say. Consider the coverage of the death of Dilbert creator Scott Adams. In announcing the cartoonist's passing, leading newsrooms found it necessary to note that Adams was guilty of holding, quote, problematic views. The subhead to Adams' official obituary in the New York Times reads, quote, his chronicles of a corporate cubicle dweller was widely distributed until racist comments on his podcast led newspapers to cut their ties with him. The Washington Post blurb concludes, quote, Adams drew criticism after he veered into far-right political terrain. The subheadline, Publisher cut ties with Mr. Adams after he made racist comments on a YouTube live stream. For context, Scott Adams' racist remarks were spurred by a 2023 survey in which 26% of black respondents disagreed with the statement, quote, "It's okay to be white," while 21% said not sure. Adams said on his podcast, this is an exact quote, "If nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, that's a hate group. And the best advice I would give to white people is to get the, we'll say, heck away from them. The editorial choice to lead coverage of Adams' death with nods to those comments would be defensible were it consistent." And I think that's a good point. It would be totally appropriate to bring that up in the context if the obituary writers were consistent in their coverage, but it's not. And this is the example, and this is why I wanted to bring it to you. Consider how these same newsrooms covered the death of Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez. The New York Times, quote, "Hugo Chavez, a polarizing figure who led a movement." The Washington Post, quote, "Hugo Chavez, passionate but polarizing Venezuelan president, dead at 58. Passionate, fiery. Good thing Chavez wasn't a racist, because then the people he starved, tortured, and murdered would have been in real trouble." And this is, and I'm glad this has come up more than once this week, talking about Rush Limbaugh. When radio host Rush Limbaugh died in 2021, the Times obituary headline accused him of turning, quote, talk radio into a right-wing attack machine. Yet, when the godfather of modern terrorism died in 2004, the same paper gave us this. Yasser Arafat, father and leader of Palestinian nationalism, dies at 75. When Thomas Monson, the longtime president of the Mormon Church, passed away in 2018, the Times headline noted that he, quote, rebuffed demands to ordain women as priests and refused to alter church opposition to same-sex marriage, end quote. In contrast, the murderous tyrant who held Cuba for half a century got a Times tongue bath in, quote, Fidel Castro, Cuban revolutionary who defied U.S., dies at 90. And the news blurb read, Castro's legacy has been a mixed record of social progress and poverty, of racial equality and political persecution. When the late Oklahoma Senator Jim Inhofe died in 2024, his Washington Post obit accused him of being a climate change denier. But when the United States obliterated an infamous Islamic State chief, the paper gave us this: Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, austere religious scholar at the helm of Islamic State, dies at 48. That's where the erroneous difference in how two so-called election deniers are memorialized based on party affiliation. In 2022, when Republican Representative Jackie Walorski of Indiana died in a car crash, her Washington Post obit concluded with a blatant political attack. Quote, a Donald Trump supporter, Walorski voted against impeaching the president in 2021 for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, which resulted in the death of one police officer and 4 others and injured more than 100 law enforcement officers. 1 year earlier, the same paper marked the passing of a Democrat representative, Elsie Hastings, with a sentimental obituary describing him as charismatic and path-breaking. Yet in 2001, Hastings helped lead the unsuccessful effort to block the certification of George W. Bush's president, joining a Democrat walkout during the certification process and standing as the first to register his objection to alleged but never proven voter fraud. Pardon me. The Washington Post tribute to Hastings made no mention of his attempt to overthrow the results of an election. The discrepancy is obvious, and it stems from the worldview so common in the left-leaning media, and this is an important line, that politics is and should be all-consuming. That's why, even in death, conservatives are granted no peace. Death is no excuse for a cessation of hostilities. When leftists say all-consuming, they mean all-consuming. Thus, the death of someone like Scott Adams is seen as just another opportunity to attack a political enemy for a supposed litany of isms and phobias. Meanwhile, those who manage to fall into the loose hierarchy of left-wing allies are allowed to bask in their legacies, with even the worst of them romanticized as charming rebels and dreamy iconoclasts. I thought that was a good way to put it all into context. Whoa, sorry, I missed all these waves. And that's why I wanted to pass it along to you quickly. But we do have more breaking news. But first, in the last two things before we talk about Venezuela, Representative, and this is important as we near midterms, folks, we have made this prediction. It is the easiest prediction in the world that if Democrats do take over after the midterms, it will be 2 years of essentially impeachment trials for the president. The president even said so himself not that long ago in an interview. Well, Representative Brittany Peterson, Democrat from Colorado, gave away the secret. She told constituents that Democrats are working to, quote, ultimately move forward to impeach Trump during a telephone town hall on Wednesday. How dare Representative Brittany Peterson just do a telephone town hall? I hope her Democrat constituents are protesting that. But according to Peterson's office, nearly 8,000 Coloradians were on the call, which featured the Congresswoman talking about the need to fight against the Trump administration on issues like, of course, you guessed it, immigration enforcement. Quote, as Trump escalates attacks on Colorado and unlawfully withholds critical funding, sends ICE into our state to terrorize communities and threatens our NATO allies abroad, I want people to know that we are here to support them in every way we can, and they are not alone. I will continue to fight back against the cruelty and lawlessness of the administration and also work to find common ground with my colleagues where I can. It is going to be a very tough road ahead, but we are going to get through it together. So there you are, giving away the secret, revealing the plot that the Democrats are already working to, quote, ultimately move forward to impeach. The full statement: the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee are, quote, working on making sure that they're building up their ability so they can figure out what we can do ultimately to move forward to impeach Trump. Keep that in mind. The midterms are very important. And finally, just to show you kind of the derangement of Trump derangement syndrome, a California state senator has proposed new legislation aimed at ensuring that President Donald Trump is excluded from the election ballot in 2028. Now, keep in mind, they tried to do this back in 2024. Another reason why I believe Trump won so easily is because the American people, and we saw it even from some that you would have probably considered on the left, saying, I don't like basically these politicians telling me who I can and cannot vote for. So state senator from California, Tom Umberg, a Democrat representing Santa Ana, and also chairperson of the Senate Judiciary Committee, is proposing Senate Bill 46, a bill that would allow the California Secretary of State to request proof of a candidate's eligibility and exclude candidates from the ballot if they are constitutionally ineligible. Okay. So California being proactive, making sure that President Trump is excluded from the 2028 ballot. And also, just since we're talking about Trump derangement syndrome, before we take our first break, there is a piece by Raw Story where they interviewed a medical expert. It's actually more than once a week at this point. Medical expert claims Trump had a stroke, and Air Force One stares video tells the story. Again, never mind what you're seeing. Never mind the numerous press conferences, press gaggles. Never mind the speeches and the gatherings and all the events we see him at. Some medical expert that Raw Story dug up, they could find that would say that he had health issues. It's getting old, but I wanted to mention it to you anyway, to just show you that anger, that hatred of Trump and the MAGA movement clearly still out there in the media. When we come back, Venezuela. A lot about Minneapolis as well. Hopefully we can get to some state issues. I know we're going to talk a lot of state issues with Assemblyman Phil Palmesano, but there's a couple things that probably won't fit into our conversation that I want to get to do. But stay with us. Just getting started. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. It is a cold one out there this morning, and we're glad that you joined us. I hope you are staying warm. We do have a lot to cover. All right, let's get to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Steve here. Well, good morning, Steve. To prove how Democrats do nothing but lie to get their way and try to get people to believe they care about the way we live, Governor Hochul said she is for nuclear power now. Seriously? Indian Point nuclear power plant closed because that is what they wanted. Isn't it a little late now to even speak of this? Nothing will be done. Democrats still have zero policies to make lives better for the working person. Thank you, Steve. Yes, I know I said this on the program, but I've talked about it with a lot of people. What I found so interesting about Hochul's State of the State was the things that she was fixing were caused by her in most instances, especially when it came to energy and the environment. You know, making it easier to build housing for people, so loosening those environmental restrictions. The list goes on and on. That's just one I thought of quickly. But it was, wait a minute, you caused the problem, and now you're going to be the savior that fixes that problem? So I'm right there with you, Steve. I agree. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. There are only 1,099 days left in Trump's term. Enjoy the day. Well, thank you. That's a nice way to start off our Friday. Okay, yesterday, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado presented Trump with her Nobel Peace Prize medal in a White House meeting. The photo obtained by the New York Post showed Trump posing with the medal encased in a frame, with Machado standing by his side in the Oval Office. A very nice gesture. The inscription read, "To President Donald J. Trump, in gratitude for your extraordinary leadership in promoting peace through strength, advancing diplomacy, and defending liberty and prosperity. Presented as a personal symbol of gratitude on behalf of the Venezuelan people in recognition of President Trump's principled and decisive action to secure a free Venezuela. The courage of America and its president, Donald J. Trump, will never be forgotten by the Venezuelan people." The president thanked Machado for the wonderful gesture. On a Truth Social post, he said, "It was my great honor to meet Maria Corina Machado of Venezuela today. She's a wonderful woman who has been through so much. Maria presented me with her Nobel Peace Prize for the work I have done. Such a wonderful gesture of mutual respect. Thank you, Maria." Now, she won the award back in October. We know that. When she explained, she had a message for Trump when she gave him the prize, saying, "I told him this. 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simon Bolivar a medal with George Washington's face on it. Bolivar kept that medal the rest of his life. It was given by General Lafayette as a sign of the brotherhood between the people of the U.S. and the people of Venezuela in their fight against tyranny. 200 years on in history, the people of Bolivar are giving back to their heir of George Washington a medal, in this case a medal of the Nobel Peace Prize." She added that she presented Trump with the prize in recognition of his unique place with our freedom. Now, they met earlier in the day for a private lunch, and they spent about 2.5 hours together at the White House. It is a very nice gesture. And we'll see where that goes. Now, the media, of course, is presenting it, guess what, as a negative. What a touching statement by Machado. And what a nice statement as well from the President of the United States. Something that should be celebrated in this. But instead, Jesse Young from CNN writes this. Here's the headline. Venezuela's Machado gave Trump her Nobel Peace Prize. In return, she received a swag bag, but no promise of support. That's the headline. Imagine, if you will, a little Twilight Zone there. Imagine, if you will, Joe Biden receiving a Nobel Peace Prize in this manner. Do you think that would be the headline? Imagine Barack Obama, who already had his own Nobel Peace Prize, and we did the math, and what was it, like 20 days into his presidency or 10 days into his presidency, he was nominated, and he ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize. That was first term, January 20th, he was sworn in, and when was the cutoff date, they said? January maybe 31st, so it was 11 days, something like that, that he was nominated and receiving, for his work in 11 days, receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. But imagine if he was gifted a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think the headline would read, Venezuela's Machado gave Obama her Nobel Prize. In return, she received a swag bag, but no promise of support? Of course not. It goes without saying. When she walked into the White House, she came bearing the gift U.S. President Donald Trump has long coveted, a Nobel Peace Prize. They put such nefarious things in Trump's mind. Does he want a Nobel Peace Prize? I'm sure he does. He's earned it. But at the same time, this drips with anger and hatred for the president, doesn't it? She was hoping the gesture might buy her something far more valuable than the Nobel Peace Prize, U.S. backing in the fight to lead Venezuela's post-Maduro future. But if she thought the gift might nudge the president toward providing a clearer endorsement, it appears she may be left waiting, at least for now. She was later photographed holding a Trump-branded swag bag as she left the White House with little clarity on her political future. Mercado is one of two figures vying for the leadership of a post-Maduro Venezuela. Trump has placed Maduro's ex-vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, as acting president, even though she was a longtime regime insider. A photo released by the White House shows Trump beside Mercado holding a large gold frame plaque that, we already went through this, that had the Nobel Peace Prize in it. Now, this is just to show you, if you ever thought, I know we have Trump supporters out there, and you thought maybe in your wildest dreams, and maybe Trump does actually get the Nobel Peace Prize. And you know I've been very pessimistic about that, saying that there's such a far-left organization now that there is absolutely, if we walked away with world peace, he would not win the Nobel Peace Prize. To prove my point, the Oslo-based Nobel Peace Center promptly reiterated that the medals cannot be shared or transferred. Quote, a medal can change owners, but the title of a Nobel Peace Prize laureate cannot. Just want to clarify that not only will he not receive one in the future, we now know, he can't even call himself a Nobel Peace Prize winner now because all he did was receive the medal. As if we did not know that, they had to reiterate it to prove their liberal bona fides. So keep that in mind when they make the announcement next year about the Nobel Peace Prize. Do not expect President Donald J. Trump's name to be on that list. If I'm wrong, I will gladly eat crow. But I think when they found the need, after that picture surfaced of Trump receiving Mercado's Nobel Peace Prize, where they felt the need to say a medal can change owners, but the title of a Nobel Peace Prize laureate cannot, I think we know where they stand. Now, Mercado did call the meeting historic, extraordinary. She added the Trump administration understood the need to rebuild institutions and protect human rights and free speech, and for a new, genuine electoral process to encourage Venezuelans to return to their country. She also insisted Venezuela already has a president-elect, Edmundo Gonzalez, the opposition candidate the U.S. previously recognized as the country's disputed 2024 election, recognized after the country's disputed 2024 election. So anyway, this is what CNN continues with. Despite Mercado's upbeat tone, it remains unclear what, if anything, she secured beyond a photo op and an official gift bag embossed with Trump's signature. So you don't know what she secured, but you still find a way to not only show your contempt for the president, but also try to, in a way, mock and ridicule Maduro. And you might say, well, that's going a little far, Frank. No, think about it. They want to almost put her down a peg by saying, well, look, she gave her Peace Prize away. All she got was a swag bag. She was used by the big bad orange man, as the left continues to say over and over again, and find it comedic. So think of that. They are trying, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, someone who's fought so hard in Venezuela, someone that the media should be praising. Instead, as soon as she speaks kindly of Trump, they need to find a way to mock and ridicule her. All she got was a swag bag. She was used. So that is typical of a CNN and the mainstream media. The bias, the hatred, and in this case, the turning on someone of Mercado who they should support, but instead have found the need to knock down a peg, to debase, to embarrass. That's what their goal was. I don't have time for this on this morning's broadcast, and we got to take a break because I'm running real late. We'll read your comments here in a moment. If you get a chance, go to the New York Post, and Martin Gurry wrote a very lengthy piece called All the Global Benefits Trump Reaped by Grabbing Maduro. And there's so many moving pieces here, and it's fascinating how beneficial the capture of Maduro was and what it has done around the world, whether it's in Venezuela itself, whether it's in Cuba, whether it's in China. There were so many kind of dominoes there, Europe overall, Russia. So if you get a chance, it's right there, I think on the right towards the front and center. All the global benefits Trump reaped by grabbing Maduro by Martin Gurry. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. When we come back, Iran. And we can talk Minnesota as well. There's a lot going on there. So stay with us. We're moving fast this morning. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer, speaking of CNN, did you happen to see the tongue lashing that the White House press secretary gave to a CNN reporter? She told him that he wasn't even a journalist and that he should not even have a seat in this room. I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, but Carolyn Levitt does such a great job. So this may be one of many. But this was at a press conference on Thursday, press briefing, I should say. I couldn't think of the word. And it was talking, and it came up about ICE, of course. The reporter asked Levitt, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that ICE is doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly? Levitt said, why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed? So asking the question to the reporter. He replied, are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably. That's when Levitt, because let's face it, the reporter right there showing the bias, showing the hatred. Okay, so you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion. You're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist. You shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungari or all the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. She said that ICE agents are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. Shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real, honest journalist. Man, it's good to have her in there, isn't it? Yes, that was. Yes, okay, that was what you're referring to. Yeah, the report I had on it didn't mention it was CNN specifically, but boy, she is doing a great job, isn't she? Carolyn Levitt. For calling them out, it's so refreshing as someone who maybe, you could argue, watching this program, spends too much time on media bias, but it's something that I've always found very fascinating in a horrible way. But if you think about, and this is not to knock George W. Bush personally, but think of the press conferences and the press briefings that he and the press secretaries at the time would have, and when someone would ask a biased question like that, they would let it go. They would answer with kind of the talking points. And it was always very frustrating. You wanted to have them hit it out of the park like Carolyn Levitt did. And you wanted them to say, no, we're not putting up with this bias baloney. And that's why it's so refreshing to see that. Also, I think it is a very important opportunity that Carolyn Levitt has because it shows the difference of the last 4 years, the 4 years of Biden, I have to start saying now, the 4 years of Biden when he and his press secretary were treated with kid gloves, were not asked any kind of tough, let alone biased questions against his policies and against his administration. That's why we had someone that was mentally and physically declining in the White House because the media refused to even report on that. As we know, we don't have to belabor this. We don't have to relitigate it. We know the facts here. But I think for those that don't pay as much attention to politics as you and I do, I think it's an important message because we've even seen some on the left. I can't remember who it was, the actor, Rainn Wilson, I think it was, from The Office, saying, look at the media's coverage under Biden. Trust me, he's on the left. Look at the coverage of the bias or look at the coverage, of the Biden administration, where you did nothing to report on his health, nothing to report on his policies and things like that. And now it's with a magnifying glass that you focus on Trump. But keep in mind, this is how biased the media is. They've done a great job of spinning that. And what is their spin? They'll say, well, you were critical of us not covering Biden's mental decline so much. That's why now we are going to focus on everything we can on Trump, whether it's his health, whether it's his policies. We're going to do all. It just happens to be. It was pure coincidence that we didn't cover the Democrat fairly, meaning cover him at all in a negative way. We didn't cover the Democrat in any way, shape, or form in a negative way. But now the Republican, we've learned the errors of our ways, and it just happens to be a Republican in there now. So now we'll cover them fiercely. Now, let's say a Democrat gets in after this. Do you think they'll go back to the kid gloves? You know the answer to that. Of course they will. It's a story as old as time. We've got a lot of comments coming in. We're going to take a short break. We will read those when we come back. A couple of updates on Iran. I do want to talk more about Minnesota. And quickly, we'll try to get to some New York State issues. Maybe we'll read them before Phil gets on to just kind of get us in the mood. Get us in the mood for New York State issues. We got a Climate Fact Friday. Bob, comment. Just when we thought this Friday couldn't get any better. Thank you, Climate Fact Friday, Bob. We'll read that. We'll read that at the end of the hour. How's that? Maybe at the beginning. Let me think about that. We're going to keep you hooked. That's Media 101. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Brought to you, yes, I'm trying to type as we talk. Brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Yes, we do have a Climate Fact Friday, Bob. That's going to come up in a little bit. I'll do that. I've decided. I've made an executive decision. We'll read that at the end of this hour, so don't miss that. All right, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. CNN should be off the air. They can't even get a story straight. They don't want to get the story straight. You're right, Mark. I mean, they can't get it straight because they don't want to. They want to push an agenda. They want to push their political beliefs on their viewers. That's why their ratings have plummeted. That's why most of the people that watch CNN, their demographic is people trapped in an airport. All right, comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Yes, it is. I think that's a chilly face, and I don't blame you. It's freezing out there. Oh, they covered him all right. That means Biden. We're talking about Biden here. The media, they covered him all right. They covered up for him. You're exactly right. He was the best, the sharpest, always on top of his game. You're exactly right. That's exactly how the media presented it. But with Trump, it's story after story about how he's, quote unquote, losing it. He's struggling. And again, it's just like when they talked about Biden's economy. Never mind what you're experiencing, seeing, feeling. It's great. The economy is great under Biden. Now, the media's message is, never mind that Trump is out there giving so many press gaggles on Air Force One that media, quote unquote, journalists don't want to be assigned to that job because he might pop out at 3 a.m. when they're trying to sleep to do a press gaggle. He works too hard for them. And I remember this in the first term, and they started talking about it a little bit in this term, but I think they realized that it was twofold why it was so negative for the media. They would complain that their weekends are over because Trump's always in the news. They were working too hard under Trump. So not only because the media is all about me. The media only cares about themselves. That's why there's so many stories about the media, why they love to talk about themselves and their profession. So they made it whiny about them. So that was a negative. So they didn't cover it as much this time. And it showed how active Trump is, how busy Trump is. A lot of people on the street walking around for how cold it is. We're getting a lot of waves we're getting almost like summer level waves from people outside. What is going on? All right, so the U.S. is sending military assets to the Middle East as Trump weighs Iran strike. This has some people on their toes. At least one U.S. aircraft carrier is being moved toward the Middle East as tensions with Iran continue to build. We learned the disturbing reason why it appears that protests have simmered down in Iran. According to Ronnie Reyes, the ruthless slaughter of anti-government protesters in Iran appears to have stopped. but only because residents are being held hostage in their homes by machine gun wielding security forces that have flooded the streets. There were tanks out, there were tanks everywhere, one source said, speaking to family in Tehran about the current situation. There's trucks that are covered with 10 people inside with machine guns, just aiming them at everyone on the street. Another person in Tehran said fears grip the capital as police and security forces patrol the roads and conduct stops. The local confirmed that the only reason calm returned to Tehran yesterday was because of the mass killing of protesters, with more than 2,600 people killed since the demonstrations began. There are no protests anymore because of the massive killings. With 12,000 dead, people are terrified, the local said. The source called on President Trump to intervene now, despite his claims Wednesday that the other side indicated that Iran had stopped the killing of protesters. Quote, "We are waiting for Trump's action. He promised to support Iranian protesters if the regime killed them. It is time to attack this brutal regime." Now, that's the concern, is that they are obviously stifling these protests through machine guns, through intimidation, through violence, through killing. And many people have said, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Trump should act now. This cannot be a missed opportunity like Obama. Obama always tried to appease Iran, though, but a missed opportunity for a regime change. We learned that Iran's ruling elites are frantically wiring millions abroad in preparation. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced sweeping new sanctions on senior Iranian officials and regime-linked financial networks, saying Tehran's ruling elite are, quote, rats fleeing the ship, as they frantically wire tens of millions of dollars out of the country amid mounting unrest. Bessent said in his message that was directed to Iran's leadership, on behalf of the people of Iran who cannot speak for themselves. Last March, we predicted that President Trump's maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian regime would accelerate an economic collapse. Since then, our sanction efforts have been effective in slashing oil exports and cutting revenue. Now, what was it? Well, we'll continue. I've got more on this in just a moment. But now Iran is dismissing the uprising. And as they typically do, what do they call it? Just like, sadly, so many people here in the United States, it's an Israeli plot. And I don't want to keep saying this. I've been saying it all week. But I think it is despicable. The people that were in the streets, the people that have talked about it in protests against Benjamin Netanyahu, who's tried to do the best to keep casualties down, but again, defending himself, defending Israel, and looking at October 7th, who started it? Of course, Hamas started the bloodshed. But you had so many people on the left saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is a horrible murderer, killer, destroying people, and they're out in the street with their anti-Semitic signs and saying their anti-Semitic statements. Where are they now talking about the Iranian regime killing their own people? What do we see from those same anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protesters? Shrug of the shoulders. They don't care about the people in Iran. They only care. It's just an excuse to spew anti-Semitic hate, is all that was. That's all it was, pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic hate. That's what that was all about when they said, well, they have to basically come to a peace deal, a ceasefire, let Hamas be, essentially, not destroy them, which, of course, they should destroy them if they want peace in Israel and Gaza. But, of course, it was never that. It was to push an anti-Semitic message. Or they'd be out in the streets right now protesting the Iranian regime killing its own people, brutally killing its own people. For whatever reason, mysteriously silent. Even some saying, let Iran figure their own stuff out. Okay. But Iran dismisses the uprising as an Israeli plot. These terrorist cells entered the protests. They shot at police officers, burned them alive, beheaded them, and targeted civilians. For 3 days, we were not fighting protesters, we were fighting terrorists, said the Iranian foreign minister. They wanted to increase the death toll. Why? Because President Trump had previously stated that if there were killings, he would intervene. Their goal was to draw the United States into the conflict. This was a deliberate plot by Israel. They sought to create more deaths by targeting ordinary people and police officers. Unbelievable. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back. Keep your comments coming in. We will be right back. Boy, this first hour is going quick. Stay with us. Wait, hold on. Before I get to, now stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Boy, I'm glad you joined us. Comment from a viewer. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Did you see that Elon Musk got the internet back up in Iran and gave it for free? I did. Starlink. We mentioned it on yesterday's program. I know a few days ago it was said that he was it was in the works and he was going to do it. Trump had asked him to do it, and now we learned, I think yesterday I brought it up on the show, that they got it back up and running. That's a major win. Now, yesterday, the U.S. ambassador of the United Nations, this is great. He said that President Trump would not stand by if the anti-government protesters in Iran are threatened, describing the commander-in-chief as a man of action. This is what Mike Waltz, not to be confused, which there's no way to confuse him, Tim Walz, just the Walz and Waltz name. So Mike Waltz said, President Trump is a man of action, not endless talk like we see at the United Nations. He has made it clear all options are on the table to stop the slaughter. And no one should know that better than the leadership of the Iranian regime. That's why I love Trump's answer to that reporter. I think that might have been a CNN reporter too, saying, do you think Iran takes you seriously? Trump laid into that reporter. During his address to the United Nations Council, Waltz also dismissed Tehran's allegation that the protesters were part of a foreign plot. Everyone in the world needs to know that the regime is weaker than ever before, and therefore is putting forward this lie because of the power of the Iranian people in the streets. They are afraid of their own people. Along with Waltz, Iranian-American activist Mashi Alijad warned the UN that the Islamic Republic cannot be dealt with normally, likening Tehran to the Islamic State terrorist group. Al-Ahad demanded that Tehran's leader be treated like ISIS, or else the killing in Iran will get worse. Quote, millions of innocent, unarmed Iranians have been silenced through bullets, mass arrests, imprisonment, and a total communications blackout. No internet, no mobile phones, and no landlines. Iran is in total darkness. Now, the deputy Iranian ambassador to the UN fired back and slammed America's support of the protesters, saying, under the hollow pretext of concern for the Iranian people and claims of support for human rights, the United States is attempting to portray itself as a friend of the Iranian people, while simultaneously laying the groundwork for political destabilization and military intervention on our so-called humanitarian narrative. The ambassador added that Tehran is seeking neither escalation nor confrontation. Russia, a member of the Security Council, also accused the U.S. of blatant aggression and interference, saying the current situation was a result of America's own escalatory actions. Trump is a man of action, and they know that, and that terrifies them. China backed Iran against protests, warning the U.S. not to use the law of the jungle. The Chinese state propaganda newspaper Global Times said China opposes the use or threat of force in international relations, opposes imposing one's own will on others, and imposes a return of the world to the law of the jungle. Okay. Douglas Murray says Trump has a chance to end Khamenei's reign of terror in Iran. His policy is that some things are already broken and you make minimal interventions in order to fix it, or allow the people of the country to fix them for themselves. The U.S. could aid assets and allies inside Iran in taking out major centers of terror regime. We could hit the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Baji militia, who are waging war against the Iranian people. America could also assist people inside Iran to target the people responsible for the terror. In doing so, we can show that freedom-loving people in Iran have a friend in the United States, and the people who murder their own people and seek to spread terror across the world will not go unpunished. President Trump has a historic opportunity. He could help end Iran's half-century nightmare and make up for 46 years of foreign policy failure. In doing so, he will prove that, unlike his predecessors, he is the president who stood for freedom in the face of terror. Okay, we got to take a break. A couple things on Minnesota here. We're going to have to move quick. Get your comments in. We got Climate Fact Friday. Bob, his statement coming up next. Get your last minute statements in as well. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up hour number 1. Let's go to viewer comments. Well, first, hold on. Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act. We didn't mention that at the beginning of the program. Your thoughts on that? We also learned, and that is, of course, did I say? It was in Minneapolis. You know, who was it that said it? I just wanted to quote it exactly, but I'm running late on time here. But someone had released an op-ed today saying that the protesters are actually forcing Trump's hand on the Insurrection Act. But let's go to viewer comments. Though I like President Trump's term for the fake news, I think the propaganda machine is even more encompassing. I would agree. It really is a propaganda machine. Now, let's do it. It's time for Climate Fact Friday Bob. He says, good morning to all. Good morning, Climate Fact Friday Bob. I want to talk about a topic I think I covered before, but it certainly requires repeating. This is about CO2 levels in the atmosphere. CO2 is actually a trace gas that plays a small role in greenhouse effect. Actually, water vapor is the largest gas concentration causing the greenhouse effect. Yet we never hear that on the mainstream media. You never hear anyone saying we got to get rid of water vapor. Let's face it, without the CO2, we would not exist on this planet. CO2 is a gas of life. And one part of science you never hear is about the saturation point of CO2. CO2 loses its effectiveness after about 40 parts per million. Anything above that has a minimal effect on warming the planet. At the present time, CO2 levels are approximately 440 parts per million in the atmosphere. Recent years, temperatures are decreasing globally. The poles, both the north and south, are gaining ice. Glaciers are growing. So how can it be true that CO2 is causing global warming? CO2 has caused greening of the earth, even in desert climates in recent years. After all, CO2 is the gas of life. Everyone have a great weekend and go Bills. Thank you, Climate Fact Friday, Bob. I appreciate it. All right, we're wrapping up hour number 1. A couple quick things to get to. As we talk about Minneapolis, there's been a lot of protests, even locally, but out of Lafayette, New York. This is not recommended. Out of Lafayette, New York, a man in a pickup truck tossed a severed deer head at a group of people protesting against ICE. The truck drove by people protesting in Lafayette before circling back and throwing a deer head out the window. The car window. Well, I thought it was a truck. Is it a truck or a car? There's a big difference. Okay, pickup truck, it says here, and then out of the car window. Okay. Now, the deer head did not hit anyone. About a dozen demonstrators were gathered to protest federal immigration policies, including actions by ICE. We were standing there just chatting and holding our signs, having coffee, when this large red truck came across the intersection on the wrong side of the road. It's just kind of sick and unnerving. Some people were very upset. We had one woman who was in tears. There's photos of it if you want to see it. I'm not going to show you. To hunters, that's not necessarily a sickening image. It's just something that I'm guessing he went out hunting, but it's a little late in the season, isn't it? There is no season at this point. That is what I meant. So where did that come from? That raises more questions than it gives answers, doesn't it? Gavin Newsom has backtracked on his outrageous claims made by his own team about ICE. Your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism. Shapiro said, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists. Yes, I think that's fair. The governor also said he disagreed that ICE should be abolished. Here's what I'm going to say about that. I know we got to go. He said, no, they're not terrorists, even though his team tweeted that out. If he's not getting approval, if he's not giving approval on tweets and posts, he's going to be in more trouble in the future, because that is a statement that should have got approved by him or his chief of staff or somebody before that was sent out. So I believe that did get the okay, and now he's throwing the staff under the bus. But we got to take a break. In the next hour, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. It's hard to believe. Hour number 1 in the book. Stay with us. And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Here we go. Boo-hoo. The poor protesters were upset about the deer head. We need to send them more messages like that. Comment from a different viewer. I'm looking forward to hearing from Fridays with Phil, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. No offense, I always look forward to yours truly, Monday through Friday, Frank. Thank you. And hope he can shed some light, meaning Assemblyman Phil Palmesano, on the latest with NYSEG and ongoing concerns. I will add that to the list. Right there we go. Well, you know, when Phil's on and Fridays with Phil, you know we will be talking about energy. Okay. Oh, by the way, the ICE agent, and I know they've doxed him already, so I suppose I can say his name, Jonathan Ross, that was involved with the shooting of Renee Nicole Good. His crowdfunding donations, they started a GoFundMe page. He has received more than $747,000 in donations. Campaign organizers say that Ross was 1,000% justified in the shooting and deserves to have a GoFundMe. So what's interesting, they said 747,000, but yet the article itself says he's going to be, is now a millionaire. Okay. All right. Now, Minnesota Democrats are rallying behind the anti-ICE agitator who bragged about stalking agents, then complained about getting arrested. Isn't that interesting? Well, they believe there's going to be no consequences. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. These protesters, because I saw it on college campuses, I've seen it in the streets going back way before, but maybe the most prevalent instance was with George Floyd. There's not supposed to be any consequences. So when someone gets arrested, gets pulled out of their car, whatever, they're shocked. See, they want to virtue signal. They want to go and attend these protests, ride in the street with no repercussions. All they want is their photos for Facebook, maybe make the news so they can show they're the most aggrieved, they're the most offended, and they care the most. Also, if you get a chance, New York Post editorial board, cynical reason Jacob Frey and Tim Walz chose not to stop calling for the Minneapolis chaos. We got the Assemblyman and everybody's excited. We've been getting a lot of text messages. Assemblyman Phil Palmesano is in the studio, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Good morning, Phil.
Morning.
It's good to see you. We haven't seen you in a little bit. You've been busy in Albany. Before we talk about the state of the state, first of all, we had a really nice comment from a viewer that says, I'm looking forward to hearing from Fridays with Phil. No offense, I always look forward to yours truly, Monday through Friday, Frank, and hope he can shed some light on the latest with NYSEG and ongoing concerns. So we'll talk about that.
Sure.
But before that, tell us about the lead up and kind of the pomp and circumstance behind the state of the state. Because we know the Frankie Focus was a part of it, the mascot. So what's it like as you enter the room for the state of the state?
I mean, it's really become a big pomp and circumstance event.
Yeah.
I was really encouraged, Governor Hochul, the one year, she actually brought it back to the tradition.
Yeah.
Doing it in the People's House on the floor of the State
Which it
Assembly,
should be.
which is where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just turned into a show where she could have PowerPoint, just like Governor Cuomo did. He had a big auditorium to bring in people from all over the state. So, and you could still have some of the elected officials in there. I know they like to point out that the mayor was there.
Yeah.
Do that, but it is what it is. I mean, it's her state of the state. She can do what she wants. So it's just, it's gotten to the point where some people don't even want to go because they know it's just
I'm sure.
a show.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, though, is this basically outlines her priorities,
right.
her main things that she wants to focus on for the coming year. And, I always kind of react to the state of the state. more tempered for the most part, just because we had to wait really see until next week.
That's when it's really important.
That's
right?
when
People may not understand that, but that's her actual budget proposal.
Yes, I mean, but certainly some of the comments she makes are alarming, and you have to point that out. I mean, she's talking about, you could tell already, she's talking about spending a lot of money, especially for universal child care.
And that's just to give in to Mom Donnie. I mean, it's such a niche market too. If you look at how much we're spending on how many kids it actually affects, and we can't afford these type of programs, but she's scared of either primary challenger or a third-party candidate, or
Yeah, I think a lot of what she's doing from her policy perspective, from some of the decisions she's made, whether it's from an administrative perspective, bills she's signing, bills she's talking about signing, is definitely geared towards trying to protect herself, insulate herself, number one, from a primary, and then to try to show that, or try to demonstrate that maybe she's not out of touch with everyday voters, people in the middle, and others. And I think she's going to have a problem on that, doing it with the middle part, because the policies speak for themselves. The policies she's advocated have spoken for themselves. But
she's concerned, because I don't know if you saw this. You probably did on Empire Report this morning, but they asked State Senator Jabari Brisport to leave the stage at a Hochul event because Brisport had endorsed Antonio Delgado.
I saw that, by the way. I didn't read it.
Yeah, so you can understand that she's. I don't know if she's concerned necessarily. I think the whole race, and we can talk about the government race later. I think things changed so much recently, but she's still willing to kind of beg for votes. I think it was the New York Post that said the whole state was elect me. That was her whole message.
Right.
And how much, especially you're so entrenched in the energy policy, how frustrating is it for you when you see her saying we're going to fix a problem that she caused?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, her thing is always going back and blaming the utilities. I know the person we spoke about. We could talk about the issues with NYSEG and the other utilities. That's part of it. But what she continues to fail to recognize, what my Democratic colleagues, the progressive colleagues in Albany fail to recognize or admit, it's their policies that are driving up these rate increases. All you have to do is look at what the residential electricity rate was in 2019 before we passed the CLCPA, the Green New Deal for New York, which is going to go to net zero generation by 2040. Right now, it's over 26 cents a kilowatt hour. That's 50% higher than the national average. If you look at natural gas prices, they're more competitive with the national average. And I just think that's part of the issue. There's never a recognition, never an accountability on that side of things. It's always, let's blame the utilities, let's do this, but they never take responsibility for their problem.
But it's perfect for Hochul when you think about it, because she can make utilities the bad guy, because who sends you the bill? The utility companies. So she can blame it on, and most people are going to look at that bill, just like the reason why she sends the check with her name on it, it's because they see that bill and they're going to blame that company, when it is her policies that have led to these costs that are making people leave in droves.
Well, on that front too, Frank, and for the viewers, we've had legislation, we call it the Ratepayer Transparency and Disclosure Act, that would require utilities to put on their bills all the green energy cost mandates, so that people could see that. Because when you look at your bill, for the viewer, obviously, most people just look at their total bill. But there's three parts to your bill. There's the supply. Now, supply is a pass-through. There's no markup from the utility. They have to go out and get their power from the providers, and that's basically a pass-through. The one that when they go for utility bill increases, when NYSEG, RG&E, and all those others go for rate increases, is on the delivery or the transportation side of your bill. That's for the poles, for the substations, for the wires. That makes up about 30 to 40% of your bill. The supply side is hovering around 40 to 50%. Okay. But then the other part of it is taxes, fees, and assessments. That ranges from 20 to 25%. They fluctuate. That's to pay for a lot of these green energy programs, these green energy mandates. So every one of these, and people say even on the supply side, a lot of these programs are getting baked into the supply. Offshore wind programs that are trying to propose will be baked into the supply. Champlain Hudson Express, they will bring power from Quebec down to New York City, which was needed because they shut down Indian Point, which provided a quarter of the power in New York City. That's going to get baked into everyone's electricity bill. We're all going to pay for power to New York City, whether it's offshore wind or Champlain Hudson Express. So those are the different things. You have the transportation or delivery side of it, which is what the utilities go for. You have the supply side, which is basically the power. That's a pass-through. And then you have the taxes, fees, and assessments, which pay for a lot of these green energy programs too. So if you want transparency and disclosure, let's put them on the bill so the public can see it. even when we passed all these the CLCPA, when we did the Climate Action Council plan, they've never truly done a true cost-benefit analysis to show how much it's going to cost. If it's such a great thing, let's tell the public how much it costs them.
Simple.
But the fact of the matter is, I mean, the estimates are already coming in at over $250 billion, probably upwards as much as $500 billion to pay for this costly and not affordable, not reliable, not feasible energy plan, climate agenda that's being advanced.
And obviously, because it's an election year, she's seeing that it can hurt her, so she's starting to backtrack on some of it. Do you think she's serious about nuclear?
I do. I do think she's serious about nuclear, and I applaud her for that.
I know you've said that.
I've been a big proponent of nuclear. I've talked to energy reporters because, first of all, compare nuclear to wind and solar. Hands down, nuclear is better. Now, yes, there have been subsidies for nuclear. Nuclear is expensive, but so is wind and solar. Why I favor nuclear more: 1, it's reliable. 2, it's dispatchable, meaning it's available 24/7.
Right.
And 3 is the land use. If you look at the land use, let's just take Indian Point for example.
Yeah.
That was a 2,000 megawatt, 2 gigawatt, which power 1 gigawatt. Remember, is powering 750,000 homes. That was 2,000 megawatts or 2 gigawatts on 240 acres of land. The Climate Action Council plan calls for 60 gigawatts of solar. You need about 8 acres per megawatt.
Wow.
If you multiply that out, you're talking about 480,000 acres of land. Now, where's that land going to be taken
Not
from?
the city.
Upstate New York. And even for wind, you need about 30 acres per megawatt. So the land use, taking prime farmland, taking land from all upstate lands, the blight that we see from all these solar panels all over the place, people don't like it.
No,
a lot
it's
of people
like the
don't
windmills.
A lot of people don't like that either. But you're taking up all this land for these types of things for not affordable, not reliable, and not a feasible energy plan.
Right. She should put her money where her mouth is and put them in Central Park. Take over Central Park.
Well,
There's a lot of room there.
Well, the other thing is from our energy, when you talk about clean energy, 90% of our emissions from upstate New York generation is emission-free right now. Downstate, 90% is fossil fuel-based. It used to be around 70+%, but then they got rid of Indian Point when it skyrocketed. So we're already demonstrating that we have clean power with the hydro. We got the nuclear. We even have some bits of wind and solar. But downstate, no. Let New York City do it for it. And remember, we're this march for emission-free. We're only 0.4% of total global emissions. China's 30% has 1,000 coal plants and building more each and every week. But yes, I do like the idea of nuclear. Nuclear is dispatchable. It's reliable. It's land use, and that's something that can be, and it's power we can count on.
Yeah.
So but that's a ways away.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we have to recognize. So you don't get rid of the energy that you have that's working, like natural gas, and there's this hostility towards natural gas, and they call it fossil fuel gas or frack gas because they want to put that connotation on it. And I would like to have frack gas, especially here in the southern tier. I'd like to be fracking for gas in the southern tier. We were never going to frack in the Finger Lakes. We weren't going to frack in the New York City watershed. But in the southern tier, there was a tremendous opportunity there, and unfortunately, that got blindsided because of pure politics.
And isn't there something ironic in a way that the farmers who've been paying taxes forever, who could have actually made money off of fracking, now have to sell their land for the blight of solar panels?
Exactly. It's so true. Yeah. So many farmers we talked to over the years, especially when we're looking at it, they were so excited about this opportunity to have gas and be able to allow exploration of their land. Now they're getting, prime farmland taken. And I do not blame the farmer.
I don't at all.
How can you blame them?
They've went this long since fracking. The first show I ever had on radio, I think we talked about fracking. It's been that long, and they've sat there having to pay their taxes, struggle to survive. I don't blame a single one of them for selling.
Then you throw the policies that under one party control that have been thrown. The Farm Labor Act, the mandatory overtime. That's just more and more. Obviously the farm labor cost as a percentage of that farm income was terrible compared to what it is nationally. So then you increase those farm labor costs, and it makes it more difficult to hold on to property. Makes it more difficult for them to pass it on to generation to their family members to continue that farm operation. So I don't blame them. They're just trying to survive. But there certainly would have been a better way to do it. And this solar and wind you see going all over the farmland is just not really what we want.
It's sad.
It is sad.
You think of the beauty of our area. One of the beauty is a farmland and all that land. And now you drive. We've all driven by the various solar areas. It doesn't look good. Let's face it. It's not the beauty of our area.
It's taking away prime farmland. So again, nuclear I think needs to be a part of the portfolio. And wind and solar needs to be a part of the portfolio, but not the whole portfolio. We want balance. And when I talk about natural gas, I mean, that's a reliable, affordable, dispatchable source of energy. I mean, with the cold spells, can you imagine relying on the wind and solar to heat your home right now? I don't think so. Because then you got battery storage, and there's battery storage issues with fires and materials that
That's
make that
scary.
up. That's very, very scary.
And I don't know if we know the health impacts of that yet. I know it takes a long time to clear out, and most of our fire departments don't have any way to handle it, because you add the water to it, it makes it worse. Yes. And they have to clear out areas when it happens. I don't know if we'll know the future impacts yet of what that
they're
holds.
full speed ahead with it.
I know.
It's like, let's do it. So let's do it first, then we'll find out the problems later. And that's not really
That's
the wise thing.
that's Albany in a nutshell, isn't it?
It's almost like the same thing with the electric school buses, making the states do it, for making the school districts and property taxpayers to do it first, a full 5 years before the state of New York has to convert their fleet. Why? Why make the school districts and property taxpayers be the guinea pig for the social experiment? Same thing with the battery storage.
Yeah, I know. Well, and it reminds me of, and we talked about this last time with and we'll talk about this later, but when it was the full electrification of housing and getting rid of natural gas, and we're getting that counts as a wave, a honk for you, Phil. When they proposed it, 5 years ago or whatever, it sounded good. They got their press conference, and we're going to have these full electric houses and all that. And then people said, wait a minute, that's at the end of this year. Yeah. I know it's been delayed, but they almost bank on the fact that you're going to forget about it by the time it's enacted.
That's right. Some of these things are done, like some of these regulations, like the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, Advanced Clean Car Rule, were put in place during COVID and being implemented this year. And the trucking industry, like, wait, what are we going to do? The auto industry, I mean, these policies could devastate the trucking and auto industry in New York. So it's really very concerning. And I will remind, and I said to the governor's people, I will remind the viewer, there was a poll done this summer, and another poll that backed it up. 71% of New Yorkers do not want a ban on natural gas, including 76% of independents. 2/3 of New Yorkers want a balance between renewable resources and natural gas, including 74% of Democrats. So the message is clear. New Yorkers want energy choice. That's why I'm really excited that Nick Langworthy is really pushing his Energy Choice Act. It's really progressing through the House.
Have you seen all the towns and cities that have signed on to it and supported it?
To send that message. So the message is New Yorkers want energy choice. They want affordable and reliable energy. But unfortunately, the governor talks about, he says all the above strategy. But unfortunately, as I said during the hearings around the state, the policies aren't matching the words. I mean, it's nice to say that. It's nice to say you're for affordability. She talked about affordability ad infinitum in the speech, but when you start tallying everything that she's talking about, that doesn't sound like affordability to me.
No, and when is affordability? Mom Donnie, they claim one on this, but when I think about affordability, it's being able to afford your groceries, these type of things. It's not having taxpayers pay for everything.
Right.
How is that affordable?
Well, it's all being subsidized by others. I mean, like they say, well, you're not supposed, like, for example, with utility bills, they have a proposal, so you shouldn't pay more than 6% of your income in utilities. That sounds great, but some people, all that does is basically make other people subsidize it for everyone else.
Exactly.
I mean, we've seen the records of the defaults, and I think that's problematic. And I think we have to look at that. How much is being subsidized by everyone else? And it's like, let's take. And their answer to everything is spend. And that's where we're going to see a budget next week that's going to be more than $250 billion budget presentation. At least that's the baseline, because what we passed last year.
That's what last year.
Yeah. So
we'll probably wish for those days back.
Yeah, we cannot continue to spend at this level. It's record spending, record debt, and then they're going to want more taxes. Like the governor says, she's not going to increase taxes, but they're pushing for it. I mean, I'm sure in our one house budgets, they're going to pass them because that's what they want to show their priorities in our house.
And how scared, I know you just got back to Albany, how scared are your colleagues on the left about being primaried from a DSA, Democratic Socialist of America? So how far left are they going to go to kind of ward off a primary challenge?
Oh, they're very, very worried. Yeah. I mean, and they're kind of kicking, many of them, we've talked, are kicking themselves in the tail for advocating and pushing forward the taxpayer-funded campaign system, because that can allow others to enter into the system, get taxpayer money to run against them. And that's just the worst.
And there's some money coming into the DSA.
Yes,
scary, sadly. So they might have shot themselves in the foot, so to speak.
No question about it.
It's going to be interesting. But we got to take a break. Stay with us. We're just getting warmed up. I feel like we covered it all already. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In the Hesselson studio, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Phil, we got a lot of comments. You get a lot of people talking.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a good thing.
It's all
in a good way.
So far, we'll see. I haven't read them all, so we'll see what they say. All right. Here we go. Ken writes in. This is on what we were talking about before. Should Trump institute the Insurrection Act? Let's see. Are there illegal immigrants roaming free in our cities? Do the illegal immigrants pose a threat to the American people? Are there violent protesters breaking the law and obstructing justice? Are there governors, mayors, and district attorneys working against the federal government's efforts to capture and deport the illegal immigrants? Are local and state police being directed to not help ICE in enforcing federal law? If you are answered yes to the above questions, I don't know about you and Phil, but I would think instituting the Insurrection Act is more than justified. Thank you, Ken. A comment from a different viewer. Please ask Phil if there's any attempt being made to put a term limit on the governor, or should this wish just go in the never gonna happen pile? Well, I had mentioned off the air, we have term limits in the state in the sense that our governors always get in trouble before, right? Isn't that our term limit? You got Spitzer, you got Cuomo. They have self-imposed term limits.
It has happened, yes. I mean, there should be term limits. We've talked about it, but it's never really probably going to happen because even in the legislature we called for it. But it's just I don't see it happening.
No.
But at the end of the day, too, there are term limits at the voting booth.
Yep.
That's why it's really critical that we need to get out this year, in my opinion, to elect a new governor.
Yeah,
if you don't like what the policies that are going on, but and getting back to the other question about what's going on in New York State, yes, there's no cooperation with the federal officials, especially ICE.
Yeah.
We are a sanctuary city in New York City, but we're also a sanctuary state based on the executive order that Governor Cuomo instituted years back. So there is no cooperation with federal ICE officials, especially if you're dealing with any type of immigration issue. You can't have cooperation with the DMV. If someone's coming up on a license, they want to check. The DMV can't share that information. That's dangerous.
And think about the fact, and I know this was a story a while ago, that they actually gave a license to an illegal immigrant truck driver. Remember, that was no name given. That was the name on the license.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's as extreme as we are when it comes to immigration sanctuary city policies. The left in Albany say it's not enough, and they want that New York for All Act.
They want more of that. And I saw in reports the governor supposedly is not in favor of that. But I mean, when you heard her at the State of the State, she said, like, we're not going to cooperate, and then she wants to empower citizens to sue ICE. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
I know.
What kind of Pandora's box would that open up? I mean, it's just dangerous after danger, and misplaced. I mean, whatever you think about what's going on, this is not the right approach to deal with it. And I'm just very, very concerned about the approach. I mean, and I tell people we had I remind people under President Biden in the policies in New York, we had, like, when I say the perfect storm of bad merging together. You had an uncontrolled open border. You remember you had an individual came across the border, was released right away, not checked, came to New York, committed a crime because of our, not sanctuary, not letting the federal officials know, because of our bail reforms, was released, took off, went down to Atlanta, Georgia, in the Georgia area. What they do? Murder Lake and Riley.
I know.
So that's these things. There are stories like that all across this country that doesn't necessarily get all the publicity, but yet they forget about that. They want people to remember the other people's names, but not those names. Yeah. And it's the policies that are implemented. So it's very scary. We're talking about people stopping, getting in the way of law enforcement, actual law enforcement doing their duty. If you want to protest. You don't get in the way of them doing their jobs. That's safe, not safe. That's dangerous, and then that's going to lead to other tragedies.
You're right. So some more viewer comments. One comment, Ken's comment was spot on, the one that we read at the beginning of the segment. So there you go, Ken. Oh, how about this one? You're going to like this one. Good morning, gentlemen. Well, good morning. Phil is my guest on the Pulse this week. I wonder who this could be. Tell him to bring his A game. Thank you to the mayor. You're on the Pulse this week.
Yes.
You excited?
This afternoon, yep.
Yeah. If you're not familiar, that's on WLEA in Hornell. The mayor's been kind enough to have me on quite a few times. I love it. It's a blast.
Yeah, he does a good job with it.
Him and Brian O'Neill.
He's been joking with me because we've never been able to work it out because you're ducking me. And I'm like,
oh, is this your first time doing it?
No, I've done it a few times.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
you were avoiding him.
Yeah, that's what we joke.
So bring your A game, says the mayor. Thank you.
I'll be ready,
Mayor Buckley, for watching the program. Coming from a different viewer. Hi. That, by the way, that's LEA 1 o'clock on Saturday and 1 o'clock on Sunday. All right. Hi, Phil. Thank you for being our voice in Albany. CO2 is needed for plant life. Are the crazy, shallow-thinking thugs that stink up Albany trying to kill off these defenseless organisms? Sorry, I'm just being sarcastic. Thank you very much. A comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Phil and Frank. Well, good morning to you. I wonder how many people on New York State Electric and Gas understand that their company is owned by a Spanish company. I'm going to try it just once. It's called Iberdrola. It has a large wind farm in Lewis County, New York, which they are highly subsidized by taxpayer money. How can this be allowed to have foreign companies come to our state and take our taxpayer money and rip the people off for their gas and electric bills? The customers must stand up for themselves, become masters of their own domain, so to speak. If you're lucky enough to be on Steuben Electric owned, I'm sorry, little typo there, but electric owned by the customer. It's a co-op in which we vote, the customers vote the board members in. Why can't New York State Electric and Gas customers do the same? You become a co-op. Stepin Road, maybe electric? I'm not sure. So I know there's co-ops out there. And finally, thank you for the comment. And last comment here. Thank you so much, Phil. You're always a fantastic interview. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I try.
So going back to the state of the state, and we actually already almost have to take a break already, but there's so much that we can cover. And I know we do this more with the budget, but when you look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, I didn't see a lot of good in this. Maybe nuclear.
I mean, I think the nuclear. I mean, yeah, she's talking about affordability. I mean, there's
yeah,
things.
But that's planned. I mean, that's just we can all talk about affordability, but they're taking it from our tax dollars to give to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I know I usually do a good, bad, and ugly. I think that I'll probably have more specifics on that with the budget.
Yeah.
When we see the budget, I'll probably have more things to talk about good. I mean, I'm sure I'll have stuff on the bad, and the ugly, the unknown.
Yeah.
But I mean, she did point out some things I think that are. I mean, we have seen rising auto insurance rates for people.
Yeah.
I think that's something. And the things she talked about in addressing those are things we've talked about: fraud, people staging accidents. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times when we try to go after them, there are some that try to stop or block those types of proposals. So I'm curious to see how these proposals move forward in the legislative session. Most of that will probably be done through the legislative process, but I'm open to see where things are going. Because I mean, obviously I've seen it on my auto insurance. Others have seen it on their auto insurance. I mean, the utility issue is, as we talked about, continues to rise. I mean, I think there's things we should be doing there, but we need to make sure we have affordable and reliable energy and advance in an energy plan that is truly in all of the above, and that affordability, reliability, and feasibility are part of the equation, and energy choice and fuel diversity.
Yeah. Do you, other than nuclear, other than a couple of her backtrack or fixing the problems that she caused, did you see a lot of positive when it came to energy policy?
Not really.
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, it's always about blaming the utility. I mean, she said, "Oh, we're going to go after the CEOs and make them disclose their income." That's not going to lower energy prices. People are worried about their bills. I mean, no one likes to see a CEO making a lot of money out of these companies. I get that. Yeah. But that's not going to. We can put in. That's not going to lower prices. And we need to really be significant about some of these things if we're going to look at. I mean, there are some things on workforce development. I think that are important. Because when she was talking about nuclear, training people from that field, there's a lot we can be doing on the workforce development, and I would love to see that translated over into our schools, like for the trades, because there is tremendous opportunity for our kids out there. Because everyone always pushes college on kids. Of course, not that college isn't a good thing, but we have a lot of trades that I've gone to the manufacturing days over that they have every year. Chemung County Chamber puts it together. It's a really good program, and you have these young kids getting exposed to the trades, and there's tremendous opportunities for people to choose that route without coming out tens of thousands of dollars in debt. So workforce development, I think, is always a good investment that we need to be making to help train the workers of tomorrow, but also when we have people getting laid off from companies, because we have companies laying people off because things change, be able to train them for transitional jobs as well. So I think those types of investments are positive things that I'd like to see more on how that's going to work.
I love trade too. When you think about it, instead of leaving college $100,000 in debt, these people are starting with major paychecks right out of the gate.
Well, yeah, and they're going to pay them as they train them.
Yeah.
So I think there's tremendous opportunities there, and I think that's where, if we could find ways to do more on that side of it, I think those are worthwhile investments.
I agree.
And we'll see what happens with the child care thing. I think is obviously a linchpin of her proposal because of the mayor. I'm very, very concerned about where that's going and how much of that's just going to be skewed towards New York City. Because it seems like it sounds like they want to give them a blank check. Oh, by the way, we're going to do a little bit for upstate New York too. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, child care is a serious issue. We need to address that. We have to work on that. But how you do that, and how fast you do that, and how much money you spend on it, and how you're going to pay for it, those are all questions that need to be ironed out. And that's what we see with the budget presentation. And after the budget presentation next week, we'll start our budget hearings. So that will be going on through the end of February, where the commissioners come before us and we ask questions, and we kind of ask them questions on specific segments of different individual policies, whether it's energy, NCON, parks, agriculture, human services, mental health, health, education, all those things. We'll have that.
And we're going to have you on the show at that time to give us an update. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio in that studio. Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Got a couple more questions for you, Phil. Sure. Good morning. Stay warm out there. Yes, it is chilly. My husband said something about putting solar panels in parking lots. It would help keep the snow and ice off parking lots, plus keep it cool, too. He would love to park in the shade, and it would power in the store, so it must be higher up. That's not a bad idea.
It's an interesting idea, sure.
Yeah, pass that along to your buddies.
Better than farmland.
That's right. Comment from a different viewer. Probably not, but can the governor be sued for causing the mess that New York State is currently trying to wade through? No, but November.
Yep. That's the best lawsuit.
Yeah, that's the best. Exactly.
Let's fire her in November and bring someone else in.
Mark writes in, blue states are showing a lot of fraud. I wonder how much fraud is in New York State. A lot of people brought this up, and I know there was something with was it some type of nursing home? Or I can't remember what it was Hochul put through, but it looks like there was a lot of money that was probably wasted. I'm not going to say fraud, but if this happened in Minnesota, what's happening in blue states.
It's very, very concerning. It's very alarming. It should be looked at. It should be reviewed. I mean, even Comptroller DiNapoli comes out occasionally says, here, there's fraud in the Medicaid program. Yeah. We've always been talking. I mean, my colleague Tom O'Mara was a big, strong advocate on the Medicaid fraud, Medicaid side of things. There's software out there that can try to look to identify that we've tried to promote and push. So, yeah, that's the issue. And then some of these policies, when she wanted them to take over the one company come over and take over the CDAP program, consumer-directed personal assistance program.
That's what I was thinking.
It was one company.
I apologize.
That was hand-selected to come in, and I think there's was brought up an alarm from some of these others and customers that I think that's being looked into, and I think there's some issues there. So I think fraud's always an issue that we need to look out, and who knows? I'm sure there's always issues going on here in New York, and we need to be able to police that. And certainly the comptroller is one of the major people that does that through his audits and through his investigations on his side.
Do you think the governor is taking into consideration? It's too early to say because their budget comes out, but what Trump is doing when it talks about cutting some of these things. We are a sanctuary state, sanctuary city, so there's money being pulled back on that. There's money that because of Minnesota, that he cut back. Or is it going to be like last year where she just pretends that's not going to happen with cuts and keeps spending like a madman?
Well, I'm concerned because what happened is you can already see what happened when the budget we passed last year didn't take any of that into consideration. Then we got the hit from that.
And she knew it, though. That's what's so frustrating.
Of course she knew it.
Yeah.
And now the other thing, going into this budget, we're going to get next week, the budget deficit, we have the budget deficit for next year jumped. It has reduced a little bit from the summer because of some Wall Street numbers, which are only temporary because that can always change. But our 3-year budget gap, and that's the one I always kind of look to.
Yeah.
We're talking over like $27 billion 3-year budget gap that needs to be addressed. So we get through, I think this year is like $4 billion, but we're talking about $27 billion over the next 3 years. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, where's any of these kind of pipe dream money coming from?
And it's just very, very concerning. And they always say we're going to tax the rich, we're going to tax the rich. The rich can leave. The rich are leaving. They can get up and go. And I still remember a statistic I talk about that kind of rings in my head. In 2000, we lost 3.57 million New Yorkers with an average income of $140,000. They were replaced by 3.5 million New Yorkers with an average income of $80,000. It's a net loss of 70,000 New Yorkers, but it equates to a net loss of $34 billion in taxable income. Yeah. That's a significant gap. We can't keep doing that. Yeah. That money was just leaving the state. People are going to Texas. They're going to Tennessee. They're going to Florida, which don't have taxes. And the one that scares me the most is the stock market, the financial sector, because you don't have to be in New York to play the financial game. No. And look at Dallas has opened up their own stock exchange.
Did you hear what the nickname for it is? Y'all Street?
Y'all Street.
Yeah,
I thought that's pretty creative, but. Yeah. the way they're marketing, but people are going to go where they're welcomed.
Yeah.
And that's the concern I have about it's very difficult to do business in New York State. And when I talk about the energy policy often, I always say, listen, businesses want affordable and reliable energy.
Yeah.
They want to know when their machines are going to work, when they put the power on, their heat stays on, the lights stay on. If they can't get affordable and reliable energy in New York, they're going to go elsewhere, and they already are. So I hope she's taking this into consideration. I mean, her budget presentation next week is going to be her blueprint on how she wants to obtain these lofty goals that she presented this week in her State of the State. And that's going to kind of give us the direction of where we're going to look and where we have to fight.
And wouldn't you think after, I'm sure you've been following in California, nothing's been done yet, but they're proposing this tax on billionaires, just like that Mondani wants. A report from the New York Post yesterday, they've lost almost, I think it was over $1 trillion in money leaving before it's even been enacted because they're scared because it's a one-time 5% or whatever. So you have these billionaires that are leaving the state.
Well, they're talking about like wealth taxes. They're talking about money that gains that aren't even achieved. Like usually, if you just capital gain, if you sell a stock, you get a gain on it, you pay tax on the gain. They want to tax you on the value of your wealth.
Yeah.
That's a sure shine way to say those people aren't going to be in New York anymore. And there are proposals to do that. There are proposals to put taxes on stock transactions. And that's a sure shine way to get these businesses, this Wall Street, out of New York State. And they're leaving. We see major sections of the financial industry going to Miami, going to Texas. And that's a concern of mine. And it's just misplaced priorities because they say, well, we're going to have the rich pay more. I mean, how much is enough? I mean, I think our top tax rate right now is 10.9%.
Yeah.
Of anything over 25 million and above. And they want to raise it to 11.4%. I say to people, would you rather have 10.9% of 25 million or 11.4% of zero?
Exactly.
And that's what we're facing with these policies. And it really is misplaced because they want to spend. There's no fiscal discipline. And what I've always said to people, my colleagues, they think it's their money. They forget it's your money, you, the viewers' money that they're spending like drunken sailors, and we need to be cognizant of it. I mean, families, the viewers listening to this call, they're tightening their belts. They're making tough decisions when things are not easy, when the gas prices or the utility bills are going up. They're making tough decisions. But the state of New York never seems to make tough decisions. They seem to punt, pass it off, kick the can down the road, and say it's going to be all right. Oh, and by the way, it's all the federal government's fault. That's why it's all.
And that was the whole thing.
It's all the tariffs. That's why everything's going wrong in New York, and that's just ridiculous.
It was all national, but we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. A lot of questions from viewers. Let's get right to them. I'm hearing a lot of reasons to leave New York. Are there reasons to stay? Phil sounds like a Florida real estate agent. I don't think he means that as an insult.
Listen, I love living here.
Exactly.
My family's here. It's a beautiful area. Great people. I think it's the people that makes our communities. We have great businesses that are investing in their people, but unfortunately New York just makes it a little bit more difficult. The tax, the regulatory structure, and some of the other policies, but I'm not encouraging people to leave. People have to make that decision for themselves, but I understand those that are leaving. I understand the businesses that are leaving because of the business climate.
Absolutely.
I remember Governor Cuomo saying people were leaving because of the weather. They weren't leaving because of the weather climate. They were leaving because of the business climate.
Coming from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank and Phil. Question for Phil. Why don't we ever see term limits on the ballot? That we, the people, can vote to install term limits on every politician. Well, doesn't it have to go through the whole process before it can be on the ballot?
Yeah, the legislature has to approve anything from a ballot initiative. A lot of times of the ballot initiatives you see are for bond acts, things of that nature. I mean, there were some proposals that we had on the ballot, whether it's because it's changing the Constitution, like the absentee ballot one, which the voters overwhelmingly rejected, but then the legislature came back and changed a few words for mail-in voting to kind of tinker with to do what they really wanted to do. It's just tough.
It's just a show.
Yeah.
Mark says, it seems to me if they made new business tax-free in New York State, it would work because they are employing people and bringing people here instead of making them leave. They want to just tax more, though. They don't even look at the option of tax less, do they?
No, sometimes there's targeted incentives you see happening. I mean, I think manufacturing really should be a focus. I mean, my colleague Tom O'Mara talks about manufacturing all the time. That's really kind of the foundation of our economy and in a lot of our areas. You know, we want to be able to make things, build things here. We should do more on the manufacturing side. I mean, we just saw Gunlock is closing down.
I know. 124 years, something like that.
I have to think the corporate folks that we're not going to be in New York anymore. They're going to go someplace where it's more friendly.
I know.
And that just has to make me think the policies here don't help. And I wish people would look. I wish leaders would look at that a little bit more. The governor and her team.
Yep. Last comment for this segment, then we got to take another break. Tell us about Blakeman. You knew this was going to come up, the governor's race, of course.
Well, sure. I mean, obviously,
looks like he's the Republican
he's going to be the
candidate.
Republican candidate. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I had already endorsed Elise. I was supporting Elise. I haven't met Mr. Blakeman. I'm sure I will. And listen, I'm going to do everything I can to support him because the alternative is not
it's whole
good. And
Yeah.
he has a successful track record on Long Island, winning in a very purple area. So he's got more Democrats in that county than he does Republicans. So I'll do everything I can to support him. But again, I'm not going to just hide it. I was very disappointed that Elise got out of the race. I met her. I talked to her down in New York and down in Washington when we did the press conference on the Energy Choice Act. We was talking about energy policy, and I was really encouraged because we need to talk.
Yeah.
I was going to help try to put some energy stuff together. And I was really, as a lot of people are, discouraged as she decided to get out of the race.
I know.
Ultimately, that's her decision to make, and I understand why she made it. I was certainly disappointed, but if Mr. Blakeman's the guy, he's the guy.
He's the guy.
Listen to the viewers. I'm all in on him. I'm going to do everything I can to help him. I would expect he'll be here in the southern tier in the Finger Lakes. I would expect to try to get him on your show here, Frank.
Absolutely. I'd have him on
and
the
we'll
show,
make that happen because and I think he's got a story to tell. But he's got. I mean, there's no question. He's got some work to do here in upstate.
Just announced that Hochul raised $12 million for her own reelection. I mean, it's a tough
and
battle.
Elise was a fundraising juggernaut.
Fundraiser.
So he's got some challenges. We just had an event. There was an event for him. My leader hosted for him up in Albany this week. They said it was very successful. So, but we got to do more of it. But we got to get him when he gets up here and around. And I think he wants to do that. And I'm sure he will. One of my best friends, probably my closest friend in the legislature, Ed Ra, is really tight with him. And so we'll be talking. We'll be working together.
And we'll learn about
and we'll have him up here, and we will. So just. It's early. I know if people are disappointed about Elise. I get that, but let's not forget what we're trying to do here. We have a governor who keeps really kind of sending the wrong message, doing the wrong policies. At least with Mr. Blakeman, a lot of that's going to change.
All right, we got to take our last break. Get your last second questions in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Boy, it's been busy this morning, Phil. Let's go to one comment from Ken. Frank and Phil, I could see New York and New York City getting free child care in place quickly. The examples from Minnesota show the Democrats that there can be a lot of money made at leering centers and transportation to and from them with little to no investment. Yeah, you got to worry about the fraud. Absolutely. Phil, we haven't had a chance to, this is a little bit off state of the state and some of the things we've been talking about today. But we read your quote a couple weeks back, time flies, maybe not that long ago, about the I can't even believe this, downgrading assaults on prison staff.
Yeah.
What is it? Tell us about this.
Well, it's like they're changing the definition, so making it more like harassment or downgrading. So listen, assault is assault.
Yeah, what?
And it's just, this is all political on the governor's part to make it look like, sound like she has more control over what's going on in her prisons in the correctional system. She doesn't. That was blatantly obviously how she handled the worker protest last year.
Right.
She doesn't. And it's really an insult and a slap in the face to these brave corrections officers who work a very, very dangerous job. If she was serious about it, that's what I want to see in her budget. Yeah. Because you have to put policy in your budget. She put policy in her budget that deals with this. First of all, she should repeal the HALT Act. If she was serious about dealing with the assaults, she would repeal the HALT Act.
Not just change the definition of assault.
That's going to be difficult to do. But there was an agreement between the unions and the docs on changes to the HALT Act, which would be helpful. And the corrections officer union was supportive of that. That would be a step in the right direction. She needs to put that in her budget to show that she's serious about it. If she does not put that in her budget, then it's just window dressing. It's just another empty promise. So
It's like your change the bail reform, which weren't changes.
Yeah.
She knows how to play the game before election. She's not great at it, for anybody paying attention, but she's trying to get to the people that aren't paying attention.
But the fact of the matter is, since we implemented HALT 3 years ago, like I didn't have the numbers for this year in front of me, but the 3 years after HALT, from 21 to 24, assaults, inmate on staff assaults are up 76% to a record high of 2,000. The inmate on inmate assaults were up 169% to a record high of just under 3,000. I mean, you think, I know they don't care about the staff, but you think they care about the other inmates, but the inmate on inmate assaults are staggering, so are the inmate on staff assaults, and even the contraband seizures are up over 32% during that same time. And we know drugs getting into prisons create a very hostile environment, lead to violence. I mean, it's just the policy, but so it's really, this is a cover-up, just try to make these assault numbers lower than what they
she
truly
can come
are.
out and show the numbers and go,
Saying
look
the
what we
numbers
did.
are going down, just like she's doing with she's trying to claim with the shootings and things like that.
With crime, in the city.
But people still don't feel safe. So you could say all what you want, but people aren't feeling safe. They aren't safe because of these policies. But inside our correctional facilities, this is continuing to be ignored, and we see more and more of our corrections officers under a constant assault. The numbers might have dipped a little bit with the work shortage, and some things not being changed during that time frame. But the fact of the matter is, assaults are on the rise. They're a record high, and she can change the definition all she wants. That's not going to change the environment. If she really wanted to change the environment, she'd look at some of these policies, and HALT would be the way to start. With the prison closures, she closed down another prison and downsized another time during this time frame too. That's not the right way to put more people into fewer prisons. It's better to have space in those prisons so they can spread out and be. But that's something we're going to be watching about and see if she has any more prison closures. That's something we'll be looking for. But she could do more on this. And it's just one thing after another on our corrections officers.
We're out of time, Phil. Thanks for giving us so much time this morning.
Always my pleasure.
We'll have you on after she releases her budget so we can figure out what's going on there. How's that?
That'd be
all right.
I look forward to it.
Last second comments. Mark writes in, I wish Blakeman would get out there more. I don't even know him or his policies. You should know who you are voting for. Thank you. And good morning. Here's a little fun fact. 3% of the population in the United States is considered rural America. The military is made up of 44% of Americans from rural areas, and 66% of rural Americans are Republicans. Thank you very much. That's it. Have a great day, and we will be back Monday morning with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.